recap. So, the Psalm says, when God brought back the returnees, or the captives, to Zion, we were as dreamers, or this felt like a dream when God brought back the captives. Then our mouths were filled with laughter and our tongues with song. Then will be said amongst the nations, God did great things with these people. Indeed, God has done great things with us, and we were really joyful. God should return our captives, like streams in the dry land, or like flash floods in the desert. Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. He who goes in crying, or in sadness, carrying the measure of seed, he shall come back with joy, carrying his sheaves. So, just to kind of a recap, we talked about how we're talking about the return from the people of Egypt. So when the people are out of their lands, when they for whether it is because a king has come in and taken people out, or whether it's they've been driven out, or whatever it is, we typically think of when the children of Israel are out of their land and they're somewhere else, they are in exile. Okay? It's a generic term. Now we have particular times when we'll talk about the Babylonian exile. That means when they were in Babylon. Okay? Or other exiles. But this is a type of exile for them. They are in Egypt. Okay? And so it's talking about the returnees from Egypt to the Promised Land. And it says that we were as dreamers. And we talked about how when that dreaming, the thing that kind of describes when you're in a dream, what a dream is usually whatever it is that you're dreaming, it's absurd. It just doesn't make sense. And that when you're in the dream, and when things are absurd, and you just are in a daze, it's like you can't even talk. Because it's the subconscious mind that's at play. The conscious mind is the one that leads you to typically talk. But what do you do when you're unconscious, when you're not really thinking words and things just come out, like the Lord laughs inappropriately? Laughter is the one thing that will come out. Or sometimes singing, right? You'll just start off, you're not even thinking about it, you just sing. That probably, I don't know if it happens to you, you're going along, you're not even thinking about it, and all of a sudden, the person next to you is, what are you humming? What are you whistling? Well, I wasn't even thinking about it. I don't know what I was whistling. But those are the things that fill their mouths. But then the thing that wakes them up, the thing that brings them to their conscious mind to say, okay, this is absurd. We've only known captivity. We've only known living in Egypt. And now we're free. This just doesn't seem real. It seems like it's a dream. And what is the thing that often wakes us up? What's the thing that wakes them up here? Someone on the outside. Someone outside your dream. It's when the Gentiles see and acknowledge that Yahweh has done great things for the Israelites. When someone on the outside, someone who shouldn't even know necessarily, they see it and they acknowledge it. And when they do, suddenly I now am able to wake up to see, okay, this isn't a dream. This isn't actually absurd. This is God answering prayer. This is good. And now I can acknowledge, yes, it's true. God has done great things for us, for me. And now we can be truly joyful. It didn't even seem like we could before because we were dreaming. It was a daze. How do we get out of this daze? And now I can be truly joyful because I actually can see it. I can actually experience it because I'm no longer in the daze. I'm no longer in the dream. I've been woken up and I see the way things really are. And now the next part of it is more of a prayer. It's more of an asking God to do something. God, return. You should return our captives, like streams in the desert. Like those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. He who goes in crying or in sadness, carrying the measure of seed, shall come back with joy, carrying his sheaves. And then we talked about, I mentioned to you, some of the words that are used in the psalm. Words that are only used in one other place. And it's in the story of Joseph. It's in his dream. It's when we're talking about his dream. Because we talked about how the very beginning of the psalm and the very end of the psalm begin with, they were as dreamers, and then it ends with sheaves. Where is a place that has a story about a dream that involves sheaves? There is only one place, and it's in the story of Joseph. In fact, the words that are used are only used in one other place, and it's in the story of Joseph. In all of the Torah, these particular Hebrew words only used in this story. So the language, the words themselves, if we were native Hebrew readers, if we knew our Old Testament as well as they did, it would be pointing us to the story of Joseph. So, and I talked about the story of Joseph, and we talked about how, let me get down to it. So the words, the streams, in verse 4, the streams in dry land, or the flash floods in the desert, the Hebrew word there is afikim. And that word is only used in one other place, and it's used when Joseph cannot hold back his tears when he is confronted with his brothers coming in Egypt. And if you imagine that the brothers are coming in, so Egypt is a land of the desert, yes? And in that story, Joseph is Egypt. Joseph is the commander, second in charge, who is hard, who is dry, who has no emotions as far as brothers are concerned. He's mean. He's putting roadblocks in front of them to get wheat. Do you remember the story about how he just is really rough on them? He says, okay, well, you're going to come in, and well, you need to go back and get your other brother. Then he changes his mind. He throws him in prison. Then he lets him out, and he gives him stuff. So go back, come back, but don't come back without your brother. He makes it really hard on them. So imagine from their point of view, we have come to the desert. We've come in front of this Egyptian who is hard, who is heartless, who is dry. And yet, when does the dam break? When does this afikim, this streams in the desert? It is when Joseph finally hears that his father has been mourning for him ever since he left, ever since he was taken. And we talked about why in the world did this change things for Joseph? Why would that information break Joseph open to where now what was dry, what was emotionless, now is gushing forth like a flash flood in the desert?
What they meant for evil, God meant for good.
Well,
father.
Yes, but
His father never gave up.
the problem is what we don't see in the story from either direction. What we don't see. We don't read this from Joseph's perspective. We read it from our perspective. We don't read it from Jacob's perspective. We read it from our perspective. We know what things that Joseph doesn't know, and we know things that Jacob doesn't know. We don't put ourselves in their shoes. What does Jacob think is reality?
He's gone.
That Joseph has been killed by a wild animal. He's not. He's not dead. But that's what Jacob thinks. And yet, for some reason, Jacob doesn't get over it. Typically, we mourn. We get a little better. It's not a constant. We don't typically, in human experience, when we experience a loss, yes, we mourn, and we're still in mourning, but we're not constantly in that original state. The intensity of that originalness. We don't typically stay there and continue to cry, continue to mourn constantly. The way the story is written, the way the text is, that Jacob is continually crying. He's continually in this intenseness. Could it be that somehow Jacob intuits, Jacob unconsciously knows somehow that he's not dead? And he continues to mourn. He continues to cry. But now on the other side, what we know that Joseph doesn't know. We know that Jacob doesn't know. But Joseph doesn't have that information. Let me recap again. So imagine that you're Joseph. Put yourself in Joseph's shoes. Okay? Joseph has just described a couple of dreams to his brothers and then to his mom and dad. One of his, yeah. Stepmom. Half-mom. Stepmom. Anyway. Well, first off, when you read in the story that I gave you, you're going to see that Joseph had given a bad report about his brothers to his father. That's all it says. Joseph gave a bad report about his brothers. We don't know what the bad report was about, but what we do know is that Joseph, one of the only two sons from that side of the family, the eldest one from this side of the family, the one that's being treated differently and better than all of the sons of Leah. He's the one that's gone to dad and tattled on us. Imagine how that goes over.
Nobody likes a tattletale.
No. But it's not just a tattletale, it's that favored son from the other side of the family. Yeah.
Rachel's firstborn.
Yes, it was.
What did he say?
It's Rachel's firstborn. So you got the kid that's getting all the praise and all the niceness and all the goodness and all the love. We're already not happy with that. Then he goes and he tattles on us about something. So imagine how you'd be feeling about that point. Now, let's just put more on top of that. He comes and he tells you, hey brothers, I had a dream last night. You okay? Okay. I haven't even got to the good part, he's already knocking off the chair. I had a dream last night, and we had sheaves. We were doing stuff, and my sheaf of wheat stood up straight, but all your sheaves bowed down to mine.
Excuse me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine how that make you feel. And then it's not even just them. It's now them and mom and dad in the next dream. You, stars, and the sun and the moon bow down to me. So just imagine that is the relationship now. Joseph knows it. Joseph is, come on. You know if there's rough stuff going on between you and somebody else in your family. You know it. Even if they haven't necessarily said anything. You know. And so now, all of a sudden, right after I've told the second one, and in the text, it says, but when he told to his father and his brothers, his father rebuked him and said to him, what kind of dream is this that you've had? Shall we indeed come, I and your mother and your brothers, bow down to the ground before you? Now, think about this. His mother is dead. Rachel is dead at this point. Think about how that plays into how Jacob feels at this point. What are you trying to say about my my now dead love? Imagine how this hits Jacob. And then the next line. So his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. So you got Jacob ticked off, you got brothers ticked off, and now Jacob says, you know what? You know what? Where are your brothers? Why don't you go and check on them? They're in Shechem. Go check on them, see what they're doing. If I was Joseph, I'd be like, you gotta be kidding me. That's the last thing I want to do. They're already upset with me. You're going to send me to check on them, which they already think I'm a tattletale. Because I am. They're already jealous of me. They're already hating me because of this dream. And they're in Shechem, which is where violence has already taken place. Because this is where they massacred all the men in the city of Shechem because of the rape of their sister, Dinah. So the place has history.
Plus, it's just the fact of doing this menial task. If I'm the special,
Well,
why should
to me, I'm like, this is danger. Why are you sending me into danger? And yet that's what Abraham wants him to do. Jacob. That's what Jacob wants them to do. Yes?
So do you think Jacob kind of had a little bit of a plan too? And maybe his crying was mourning or regretful of sending his...
It's an interesting question. We really don't know, and yet it would seem that I feel for certain that Jacob's plan was not for him to be killed
Right.
or for him to be sent away. If there was a plan, I can imagine maybe the boys will have a talk. They'll work things out. He won't be quite so uppity.
He might have a few bruises, but
Might have a few beer bruises, but they're not gonna really, do anything drastic.
Maybe he felt guilty for it.
Well, so as far as Joseph is concerned, he is going into a situation where his dad has sent him. A dad with the knowledge of all these things. The boys do what they do. He gets sent off to Egypt. They come back telling Jacob that he's been killed. But Joseph doesn't know that. Joseph doesn't know that Jacob thinks he's dead. And it makes sense to him, the longer things go, the longer time goes, that Jacob doesn't come to find him. The longer it goes that Jacob, his father, doesn't come to take him home, the more that story seems to fit that for some reason his father was in on the plan. Otherwise, why didn't Joseph send word? Why didn't Joseph? Joseph's out of jail. He's second in command of all of Egypt. Why doesn't he send word to let his father know that he's okay?
maybe God didn't tell him to.
Huh?
Maybe God didn't tell him to.
Well, but he doesn't tell him not to.
No, he didn't tell him not to.
Right.
The time has passed, and then when he does hear about when the brothers come, he's like, is your father still alive? I think enough time had gone by that he thought maybe dad was dead. So I think he may have been grieving,
But
not knowing, because he didn't know what was going on.
But
with the
notice,
family.
even after he finds out his father is alive, he still hasn't been told that his father's grieving. He still is under the misconception, the idea that the plan all along was a plan that his father either was in on or then in the end became okay with. One or the other. It's not until he finds out that his father has been grieving the entire time, thinking that his son was dead. That is what breaks open the dam. That is what opens up the streams in the desert. Because he realizes Dad didn't know. Dad thought I was dead. All this time, I thought my father didn't love me anymore. Didn't want me anymore. And now I know that was not the truth. It wasn't reality. I was living in a dream. Or a nightmare. And now we see that the floodgates come open. All right, let me get back to where we were. All right. So Jacob would not be consoled. It says he would go down to Joseph's grave mourning every day for his son. And could it be that he can't get over it because somehow he intuits or dreams, unconsciously knows that Joseph isn't dead. So he's the one that continues to cry. And if you look at the verses, those who sow in tears shall reap in joy.
Psalm? Where are you?
126.
126.
Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. He who goes in crying or in sadness, carrying the measure of seed, shall come back with joy, carrying his sheep. So, those who sow in tears. So Joseph, if Jacob had not been mourning, if Jacob had not been crying, if Jacob's tears had not been flowing all this time, then Joseph wouldn't have been told that. So it was Jacob's tears that ended up releasing Joseph. Have you guys ever thought, that it is our why do we cry about loss? Yes, but
What was it?
what for ourselves? Yes, in a certain way, yes. But there's more, right? Why is it? Okay, let's just say someone on the other side of the world dies, who I don't know. Someone tells me that they died. Do I react to that differently than hearing my grandparent died? Probably. Why? Relationship.
It's a personal loss.
Relationship meaning
You were close to them, you knew them.
close to them meaning
Love.
love. Thank you, sir. I love them. That's why we cry when we have a loss. I heard someone one time describe our tears as our mourning as the love that we did not yet get to share. The love that we did not yet get to share. So, I want you to imagine that our loving people, whether that is through tears, whether that is through showing up for them when they're alive, whether that is going above and beyond the norm for people, whether it is in the way we speak to people we don't know, whether it is in the countenance of my face as I deal with someone who's very difficult. Because I will tell you, the way my face looks when I'm dealing with someone who's being difficult conveys things.
And vice versa. For someone that you love, like, whatever, it's
Whatever it is. All the things about the way we live shows how we feel, how we choose to be. I can choose when someone is being very difficult, mean, whatever. I can choose to be mean back. I can choose to have a face that is stern and upset and angry. A face that says, "Who are you?" Or I can choose to have a face that's understanding, cares about how they feel, may not agree, but still cares. I can choose to respond with words that are understanding, words that are willing to listen and say, "Talk to me about how you're feeling."
The first reaction is more automatic.
Well,
I mean, typically. And then the other is a decision of choice too. I mean, if somebody's, in your face, blah, 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 the natural reaction is
Right.
back. But it's typically for most people, a choice to make the decision to, I am not going to react in kind.
and again, it comes back to the idea of Paul. Paul says that we are to be transformed by the renewing. That means turning back, resetting the way we think. So that when someone decides that they've got an issue with me and comes to talk to me about it, instead of choosing to allow myself to see this confrontation as an affront, instead of choosing to see this confrontation, not that this has happened, he happens to be here, not that this confrontation is that I have to be afraid of and act out of fear. That I am willing to love, I will choose to love. And in choosing to love, that means I want to hear. I want to listen. I value this person and what they have to say. I may not agree, but I value what they have to say. And so, Richard comes up to me, he's really upset with me about something. He says, Terry, I need to talk to you, and I can tell he's upset. He's frothing his mouth, you know how he is. And
Pigs do that.
pigs do that, that's right. And I can't, man, my throat wasn't like the way I can do my pig sound effect. But,
Next week. There you go.
Oh, boy.
And but instead of choosing to see this as a threat, instead of choosing to see it as something to be afraid of, I choose to see Richard as someone I love. And therefore, if he has a concern with me, I want to know what it is. And I want to listen, and because I value our relationship. Instead of acting out of fear, instead of allowing myself to be fearful, I'm going to say no. Of course, Richard, let's talk. I want to find out what I can do. Have I done something? Humility is a part of love. Loving someone means I'm going to sacrifice for them. There is a humility in that. There is a sense of you're more important. We often, so I'm not a big fan of apologetics. I don't know if you guys know what that word means. It is the idea of being trained to argue, to win an argument about why you're right about the Bible. Typically that's when we talk about apologetics within Christian realm. I'm not a big fan of that, because I think that's the wrong aim. I do not need to be able to prove myself right about this. Now, if you want to know, if you're asking me to share with you about why I think about those things the way I do, if you want me to talk to you about scriptural reasons why I am where I am in my theology, very happy to share that. But when it comes to an interaction with someone, me proving myself right is not the goal. Peace, love, that they understand that my relationship with them and fixing that is more important than my proving myself to be correct. That's what matters. Because it doesn't matter if I'm correct or not. If they think I don't give a rip about them and that this is more important to me, they're not going to listen to me anyway. So why am I so enamored with trying to be able to argue in ways that I can prove myself as being correct? If the issue is there's a problem between you and I, we have a disagreement about something. Richard, love you. Let's talk about this particular thing. I'm so sorry if I have said something that has made you feel like I don't value you. Because I do. And I'm so sorry. And we would be hugging at this point. I love you. You are worth way more to me than trying to convince you I'm right and you're wrong. Guys, there was not unity of belief in the early church. Can I just tell you that? Everybody in the early church for the first 300 years did not believe all exactly the same thing. That's why they had councils that came together and tried to decide, okay, what are the core things we got to believe? What are the core things we got to agree on? There were tons of other things they didn't agree on. And yet, the very thing that Jesus said was the most important thing, unity. Unity and love. I love you. Do you believe this thing? Yeah, you do. Do I not think it's correct? No, I don't. But that's okay. If at the very core of everything, what we believe in is that God looks exactly like Jesus, and He is going to, and always has been, acting out of that heart and that mind. That is the good news. God is not against you. He is for you. You can trust Him, and hopefully my life and the way I treat you and the way I advocate for you will prove to you that you can trust me, and therefore, because I am a Christian, you can trust God. It's not about whether or not I can prove I'm right. The greatest commandments are not love God and with all that you have and make sure everybody else believes things the way you believe. It's just not there. It's about how we treat others. So could it be that just like Jacob's mourning, Jacob's living out his love that he didn't get to express for Joseph, that simply knowing about that, simply being made aware of that, simply coming to understand that that was the truth, change everything. And I would like to posit to you today, I would like to say to you today, that is still true today. How you react, how you choose to see others and live into that vision that you have. When you can love other people the way you want to be loved, or maybe even better yet, you can love other people the way Christ has loved you. And people see that, and they come to understand that, wait a minute, you're treating me like this. That's weird. You're forgiving me for things and not making me pay restitution. That's weird. you don't know me. You're not one of my relations. And yet you're acting like you love me, like I'm part of your family. That's weird. Why are you doing that? And they come to understand that that is being lived out of who God is. He is a God who doesn't see you're not mine and you are. You're not worthy of love and you are. I don't understand about your life, but I do about yours. We are the body of Christ. We are just like the Israelites who are called out to be a peculiar people. A strange people, because we don't act like the rest of the world. Because we're supposed to be demonstrating and living out who God is, so that people will come to know, so that people will come to understand. So could simply coming and sitting with someone who's mourning, who I don't know, and just putting my arm around them and sitting with them, so that they know they're not alone. Even if it's someone who, as far as the rest of the world is concerned, is not worthy, is not deserving because of the life they lived. And yet I come and I say, whoever it is, Barb comes to visit and sit and be. And in that being saying, you are loved, you are not alone. And Stacy sees, because of the way Barb treats her, she begins to understand that maybe she's not this wretch. Maybe she's not this person who doesn't deserve to be loved, like she's been told by so many other people in her life. That her thinking about herself, she begins to think, wait a minute, maybe I'm actually worth something. Barb thinks so. Because she's not getting anything out of this relationship. She's doing this completely out of gratis, out of grace. Barb thinks I'm worth something. Maybe I am. And then she realizes it's because Barb believes in Jesus. And for so much of Stacy's life, she's been told that God looks down on her, that God despises her because of the life she lived. But then, because of Barb's life, because of Barb's love for her, not only does she start thinking that maybe she's worth something, now she starts thinking, maybe God thinks I'm worth something. What if he's not the way everybody's been telling me that he is? What if, because this person is the person who's following him and doing the things that he says that they should do, and it's just pouring out of Barb. It doesn't even seem like it's a big effort for Barb. It just seems like it's just coming out Barb's pores and just splashing out of her. When she looks at me, when she puts her arms around me, I can just feel it. What if that's what God's like? I haven't wanted to do anything with God because all the other Christians have treated me like crap. But what if they weren't actually living the life of Jesus? What if they weren't actually demonstrating who God is? What if they were putting God's name on their hate? What if they were putting God's name on their idea of how they want to live? What if this is exactly what God is like, but even greater? Our love, God's love poured out through us, makes all the difference. And until we get a hold of that it's not just for the people in this room, that it's not just for the person over here who I know. I'm going to dig into scripture that we're going to be talking about today. When it's the person who we become aware of who is not getting the justice of Scripture, the justice of the kingdom. God is all about setting things right. Not about this, but about this. And so, when I am made aware of someone who is here, I need to be willing to lower myself so that they can find justice. And that means I need not only to do what I can in my own personal life, but it also means that I need to advocate with my voice those that I can't reach, but advocate that justice comes for them as well. And I need to do it loudly, and I need to do it consistently to stand up for those who are in the margins, because that's the place where Jesus chose to stand. And I should already be done, but I'm not. Here's what happens, guys. The church gets tired of standing in the margins. We get sick of being over here and being overlooked and being considered outsiders, of not being in the mix of things, of not having power. And so we choose this way looks better. Let me step over into power. And you know what? If I do, I can use that power to help people. It might even come from at least a partially good idea. But what happens is power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we now become empire. We now get in bed with empire. And we want to hold on to our power. And so we go along with the things that empire says that we should go along with. Because we just don't want to be over here anymore. And yet that's where we're called to go. It is either we have a choice between power and mercy. We can't have both. We cannot hold the cross of Christ and pick up the sword of power at the same time. It doesn't work. So, remember, tears can change everything. Let's pray. Father, thank you for who you are. Thank you that even in this story there is a vision for us today. Help us, Lord, to continue to seek justice for those who are in desperate need of it. Help us not make excuses. Help us to stand with them and just realize it's going to be uncomfortable. But help us to realize that when we start getting comfortable, that should be a red flag. That perhaps we're not where we should be. We ask all these things in Jesus' name.